Hello everyone, welcome to the show Meet the Global Leader. This is an initiative by School of Entrepreneurship Development, and under this initiative we invite many global leaders and they share their experience, how they evolved from no one to someone. And today we're very much happy because we have with us none other than Regina Summer. She is the Chief Strategy Officer of International Collaboration from Vinova. She is very inspirational character, and I've talked with her before, and the way she showed uh, her charismatic views, I think she is no less than a Wonder Woman. So today we'll learn many things from Regina Summer, and I think this will be a great opportunity for the youths from many private and public universities in Bangladesh to have idea how a global leader evolves over the time. So Regina, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and thank you very much for those kind words. I'm very flattered. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. So, Regina, since this platform is followed by many students from many aspiring leaders from many private and public universities, top-notch universities in Bangladesh, from the very beginning, I would like to know that you are a global leader. So, we'd like to know about your like starting point. From where did you study? How did you evolve like a global leader? And what was your passion during your academic period? And did you get yourself attached with any voluntary activities before?
Yes, I will try to answer that as short as possible. But first of all, I mean, you calling me a global leader, and I'm very flattered for that. We had, and I think that was the activity we had, Sweden Innovation Days in January, where maybe you learn more about Vinnova, the Swedish Innovation Agency, and what we do. And of course, the Sweden Innovation Days reached out to 97 countries. So, and I'm very happy for that. So in a way, I wouldn't say that I am the global leader, but definitely Sweden as a country and a lot of things that we do there can absolutely be part of this, in global inspiration. But my background, I studied at Lund University. I actually think they are in the top 100 universities of the world. So I'm very happy for that. And I studied sociology of law and some law. And actually, to be honest, my intention and my dream was to work with human rights at the European Commission. That was my plan. And then I got my first job in Stockholm, and the first job was about learning about all the funding and funding opportunities and programs that the European Commission had. And I was there because I wanted to get, one foot in to later be able to work at the European Commission. But I ended up learning more than 1,000 programs and funding opportunities from the European Commission, and started working with some of our largest companies in helping them apply for funding at the European level for different research and innovation projects. So that's how I started from the university to my first job in Stockholm, when I moved to Stockholm from Lund. And then I just, followed that lead. I went from, actually, I've been working mostly in the private sector. And now, this is my second job in the public sector, which I'm very happy that I'm working in the public sector. But it started in the private sector. And I think, and to be honest, I have worked with similar questions. Like in all the jobs I have had, I've always worked with research and innovation, business development, helping organizations to either apply for funding for research projects, or helping researchers understand the funding landscape and how to develop a project. And I've done that both in the private sector, but also in the academic world. So after working within the private sector, I actually worked after my first job, I worked with a similar activities at the KPMG. That's one of the top 5 consultancy companies in the world. And after that, I also worked with similar questions at the Stockholm University. And we were two people assigned to work at Stockholm University to develop an office to help the researchers with commercialization of research. And at that point, that was a little bit crazy because, just mentioning the word commercialization for a researcher was super sensitive. But it was a nice challenge. And I think challenge is a key word here if you want to describe me. I love challenges. It triggers me. So that's like in every job I've had, I'm always like looking for where's the challenge here? What can I change? So that's like just the background. Lund University, then Stockholm, private sector, and then academia, and then the public sector, working with innovation all the time. Different parts of the innovation value chain, to be honest. And now today I'm, working with internationalization and creating innovation collaborations. So,
you know what, Regina? This is the beauty of a global leader. You always wanted to work for human rights, and human rights are one of the most overlooked things in the world at the moment. So this is the thing that we all leaders like to do. We always think from the holistic point of view, that it's not just like that we will remain very good, but at the same time, our community and our surroundings also must be very good in their respective field. So this is a very learning experience from our viewers. So now in this case, I would like to question you from another point of view, that do you believe that people nowadays, and most of the time, like in most of the executives from top-notch companies, they actually lack this kind of thinking, that we shouldn't do business from the point of view of profit. At the same time, if you look at the present industrial revolution, it is all about artificial intelligence and Internet of Things. But our next industrial revolution is going to be green industrial revolution. So until or unless you can assure you that your business is eco-friendly, you cannot sustain in the long run. So sustainability is a big issue. So do you think that our leaders who are like spearheading any business, any community, they must keep in their mind that human rights and eco-friendliness, environmental issue, these also should be kept in their mind?
I love that you mentioned this, because it's really, it's like you said, it's like the most important thing and in everything that Vinnova does, and really, I mean, to be honest, I've always, in everything I've done, what I love is that I'm working for Sweden. That's my job. I'm working for a better Sweden, and hopefully a better world, in a sense. And in Vinnova too, as an organization. And I think this is very important, because of course we all want to, after we studied, we want to get a job. But I think it's important today also to be a bit critical and see, so this employer, what kind of values do they have? What do they represent? And I know in certain cases it's not always, it's a luxury to be able to choose that. And I'm not saying that it's easy to, it's always the case that you choose a job. But I think in a sense, I think it's very important to have that in mind. And something that makes me very proud of working at Vinnova is the fact that Vinnova, in everything Vinnova does, the whole mission of Vinnova is to enable innovations that make a difference in society. And in everything we do, we work towards the sustainable development goals. So these things are very important for me as a private person, but also, of course, a reason for working at Vinnova. and for wanting to work at Vinnova and feeling inspired by working at Vinnova. And I mean, I'm going to be honest, it's a public sector. It's not that I'm, becoming a millionaire by working at Vinnova, but it makes me, I'm like I'm rich. I'm rich in the sense that it aligns with my own values, and I can be, it makes me grow, makes me be very proud of what I do during my time at work, and how
Well,
I contribute to the development of Sweden through Vinnova. So that's very
fantastic.
important.
It also shows your patriotism. You also shows what kind of love, affection you have to your country. So definitely, it's a very positive side and positive minded thinking. So now let's come to the next point. Like, if you look at the post pandemic period, this is a very serious period for graduates, for who are about to graduate from their universities. So there's different kind of skill sets that we must adapt ourselves, and many aspiring leaders would like to know, those who would like to start their career, they also would like to know that in newly defined world, what kind of skill sets we must have to stand out from the crowd in any business, in any job, in any career. So what kind of skills you must suggest to the aspiring graduates? They must have knack in this kind of skills, so that they can have prosperous life and prosperous career in future.
I think regardless of, I mean, post pandemic or previous, I mean, it's I think in any case, in all cases, it's very important to be, have a drive, wanting something, and of course, not just talk, walk the talk. I mean, that's key. Walk the talk. What you say, you do. These things are like, I think it's so basic, and also a skill that I think it's super underestimated is the skill to sell. And I'm not saying that you need to go out and sell a product or work as a salesman, but if you want to make changes, if you want to make people listen to you, you have to have the skill of telling a story, engaging people. And I think this is something that even if if you're a bit shy or you have difficulties with it, you can still work on it and tell a story in your way, even if you're not as eccentric as maybe others are, but it's still the ability to be able to sell an idea, to sell a product, to sell a process, to get people engaged by telling a story of what you want. I think that's something that is so underestimated, and it's not easy to find people that have that drive in combination with the ability to what is their drive, what is it that they want to accomplish, and explain that for a group that actually listens and get inspired and wants to join you. And that this can be in all different kinds of situations. If you're holding a speech and you want to affect people in a way, or you just have a small team and you're the project manager and want people to move towards a certain direction, towards a certain goal. And I know it sounds super basic, but unfortunately I don't see it as much as I wish I did. And then, of course, other super basic things. Be honest, be agile. I think today we need to be super agile. Things are moving in such a fast pace. We need to be agile and adapt. That's super key. And I think now we talk a lot about in Sweden the gig economy, that a lot of the youth, they don't want to go to work 8 to 5 and have a full-time job 5 times a week. They want to do different projects here and there. So this gig economy is being created, which is super cool. But of course, to be able to manage that, you need to be agile. You need to be able to sell and inspire and get people involved and buying your idea or whatever you're selling, because we're all selling something, if it is an opinion or a product or a service or whatever. So I would say, and be nice. I think you get lot of things done just by being nice and respecting people. And I know this sounds super basic, but I think at the end of the day, it's about these things, and being able to communicate in a friendly and honest and straightforward way.
So you have aptly said that to have a very meaningful life, you must have drive to bring something change. You must be driven by something very passionate, something very innovative. So until or unless you have something to go forward, any passion to go forward, you cannot lead a meaningful life. So this is the key takeaway from Regina, I would like to say. And another thing is, no matter what kind of situation is prevailing at the moment, communication skill also makes a great difference, because no matter how good idea you have, you can communicate. If you can't communicate your idea with your target customer, then this is totally useless. So you also need to focus on this regard. So Regina, now I'd like to know from your point of view that uh, many people are watching this webinar, and maybe since it is recorded, some will listen to this more. And would you like to tell more about Vinova, like what kind of impact Vinova is creating in local, in Sweden, or in global perspective, and also how much impactful things you have done so far in Vinova, and what is your vision about Vinova, and what on in which stage you'd like to see Vinova in next 4 to 5 years?
Great, thank you. Well, Vinnova is a government agency under the Ministry of Enterprise and Innovation in Sweden. And there's no other innovation agency in Sweden. We are the one. And we work with 3 tools. We identify the challenges that we have in society. We mobilize the actors, the relevant actors, to collaborate. And then we work with funding. So funding for research and innovation, usually we move around, between 3 and 6 on the TRL scale, the technology readiness level. So this is what we do. But in everything we do, of course, our mission is to enable innovations that make a real difference in society. And like I mentioned before, the Sustainable Development Goals are what we strive for. That's what we're working for. So in everything we do, sustainability is key. So this is what Vinnova does. And what we have done the last year is we have focused a lot on a mission-oriented approach. And you can actually find a book at Vinnova's website that guides you in how you can design missions and what we mean with a mission-oriented approach. And it's actually, I don't know if you know about the researcher Mariana Mazzucato. She's a researcher from UK that started actually to talk about a mission-oriented approach. And it is, to explain it easy, it's like we have the Sustainable Development Goals, for example, and one of the goals is clean oceans. But to have, clean oceans, okay, how are we going to achieve that? Where do we start? So what she's saying is that we have the Sustainable Development Goals. Let's set different missions to achieve clean oceans. And a mission could be, for example, no more plastic in the sea. And then having that mission, you try to find projects that have that goal to achieve having no more plastic in our oceans. That makes it much more concrete. And in practice, it could be a project in a municipality that has a beach and they have activities to clean the beach. You can have a project with a food company that wants to develop materials that actually makes their plastic boxes to resolve in water without damaging our ocean. So you can have so many projects, and they can all have the same goal, the mission in having no more plastic in our oceans. That's what Mazzucato talks about, and that's something that we have. Like 3 years ago, we started 2 pilots in Sweden, and one pilot focusing on mobility and one pilot focusing on food, healthy food in school for kids. And what we did in practice, and you can learn more about that in that guidebook that you can find on Vinnova's webpage, vinnova.se, and it's free for everyone to use. Please spread it. What we did is that we gathered around the same table, for example, focusing on the mission healthy food in school. We gathered, a chef, a farmer, a municipality that procures food for the schools, a student, and all of the and a company, a food company, and all of these different actors around the same table. Because what we believe today is that we need to innovate in an absolutely much broader sense than we do today. And I know that Sweden is a little bit famous for having, started the triple helix model, and we're super proud of the triple helix model. But it's, to be honest, it's old. It's not enough having industry, academia working together and getting funding from government. That's a triple helix model. It's not enough having that if you really want to achieve the changes we need to do in society to achieve the global goals. So what we're saying now is that we need to involve much broader. If you want to make a change, if you have, and this is actually, this is no rocket science. We know today that there are, we have a lot of technology out there that can be used to lower the carbon fuels, but they are not out there in the market. Why? Usually because of regulatory hinders or policy hinders or municipalities that don't know about these innovations. So how can we engage municipalities, public organizations, the ones, organizations that work with policy, the regulatory organizations that can actually, they need to be part of this for making a change. And to be honest, if you say innovation is a new invention that creates a value in society or in a market. So if you don't create that value in society or in a market, you have an invention. An invention can be great, but it's just sad if it's a great invention and it's not used and creating the changes that it could do in society. So this is what we're working on right now. And in everything we do, we are trying to integrate the system innovation thinking, in engaging much broadly. We also are now developing something that we call system demonstrators, and we actually have some projects already up and running, but we want to do more about that with that. And it means in practice of trying out the system innovation perspective with the different actors in a real setting. So having a system demonstrator where you can try out this in parts of a society for real. So, and then you need to really involve all these actors. So this is what's happening right now. So if you would say 4 to 5 years, I hope we have a lot of system demonstrators around Sweden, and maybe also in collaboration with other countries. And we are, getting closer to our goal of having a carbon neutral society in 2045. That is the Swedish goal set. So this is what we are trying to achieve in everything we do.
So one of the
Was it
interesting
anything
things,
else there, Mohi? Did I answer everything?
You might answer like what kind of impactful things you have done. Like by so far I have talked with you so much, and I think you are very much proud of working at Vinnova. So what kind of things you have done so far, for which you feel very proud that you have at least contributed to the society, at least you have contributed to the community?
Well, to be honest, it's quite of a tough question to answer, because Vinnova has a budget of 3.7 billion Swedish crowns. What would it be? 3 billion, divided by 10 or something, and you can have the euro number. But and with that funding, that's a yearly funding. We fund around 4,000 projects a year. So, and of course, you can ask yourself, so what do these 4,000 projects do? Do they achieve something in our society? And we have so many projects that we are super proud of. For example, I was saying this pilot that we did on a mission-oriented approach, focusing on healthy food in schools. We have now 4 municipalities that have that are actually pilots after the first phase, that designing the whole mission, and now we are it's actually happening in 4 municipalities. Vinnova is part of we fund 17 strategic innovation programs. One of them is called Viable City. They have signed a contract with at least 30 cities in Sweden, where the cities have signed up and agreed on becoming carbon neutral before 2045, and doing everything that's necessary within their municipality. And these are large cities that have signed these agreements. We have arranged so many policy labs to inspire and teach also municipalities and public organizations on how can they be an innovation driver, how can they make the changes that are needed. Because at the end of the day, the municipalities, the cities, they have usually quite a big budget, and they can procure innovations and sometimes, in a sense, take a little bit more risk than maybe a private person or a private organization can do. And I mean, the municipalities in Sweden are the biggest clients of almost everything. So it's a very, very important actor. So we have been part of that. I don't know how many projects I can mention, but there's another project focusing on circular economy. It's a municipality called Sotenäs kommun. They have arranged to have a small factory along the shores of the west coast in Sweden, and they gather plastic from the oceans, and they create like bags and furnitures out of this plastic. So it's really a circular economy model that it's up and running today. We, for example, also have we're funded 5 innovation hubs focusing on health, where one of them is called Vision Zero Cancer, and they're working solidly on how do we kill cancer, how can we make cancer disappear, and maybe, I mean, of course it's a long-term project, but they are doing fantastic things in practice with our hospitals in Sweden, but also in collaboration with hospitals abroad. So there, 4,000 projects a year, and Vinnova has been around for almost 20 years. So yeah, there's a lot of things to be proud of. But of course, and then just the basic fact that we have the National Incubator Program, where we support all the incubators and science parks in Sweden. We give them a grant for being able to help startups and people that have an idea to get support for free. So that's also a help to startups and students and researchers out there that have ideas that they want to try out. So then they can turn to, I think we have about 40 incubators in Sweden and 36 science parks. And they can offer certain services for free because they get a grant from Vinnova. So there's a lot of things to be proud of. And I don't think that I'm bragging, but it's true.
No. Definitely, you deserve that much credit, because running 4,000 projects, it's not a matter of joke. It's a big deal, I must say. And also, we as a developing country, we also must learn from your country, a developed country, that this is the time for sustainability. And let me add you another thing, that is, if you look at top-notch companies like Nike, like Adidas, like ExxonMobil, they have sustainable manager, just like they have chief marketing officer, chief financial officer. So the the world is embarking on such a stage that whatever you do, a business or any initiative, you have to keep in your mind that this goes along with the eco-friendliness. So on that note, I would like to ask a question like, uh, in your country, and especially in Nordic countries, what kind of awareness they have? Like, what I personally believe that in developing country, and also in some underdeveloped country, we must get some kind of curriculum so that students also can be aware of sustainability about this era, because until or unless our young generation doesn't know about the importance of sustainability, about eco-friendliness, we cannot have the full outcome out of these initiatives. So do you have any idea, like do you have any plan to start any initiative by which in curriculum, especially university level or in school level, uh, will be added regarding sustainability? And is there any work has been done so far, or do you have any plan to work on that?
Well, I think, I mean, the environment, I mean, just taking care of our environment is something that we learn very, very early in school. And again, I mentioned system innovation and innovating in the broadest sense, involving all important actors that can make it happen. This is really about that, what you're mentioning here, because I mean, I as a private person can learn, many things about how taking care of the environment. But at the end of the day, if I then, when I go and throw my rubbish in a public bin, don't have any, it's not recycled, or you throw batteries and plastic and everything in the same bin, what changes does it do? I mean, so this is, again, it's about learning it very early in school, of course, as a private person, but also having the knowledge in the municipalities that run our cities. And again, the municipalities are very, very important actors in this. So it's about, having, there's so many actors that need to learn this. It's not enough to just put it on the private persons, because they need to, have the tools to choose a more environmental friendly alternative. If you don't have that, so how can you make the change? It's quite hard as a private person.
So different stakeholders, it can be private, it can be governmental, or every stakeholder must have concrete idea about this sustainability issue and eco-friendliness issue. So otherwise, just by adding in the curriculum will not bring something very positive. So this is for sure, from your point of view, what we have learned. And another thing that I would like to add, that is the pandemic period, the coronavirus, the COVID-19. This has changed the whole picture of the economy, of the environment. So do you think that the companies, the multinationals, which are very responsible, which are responsible in a greater level for the carbon emission, and they have some responsibility to do something good for the society, for the environment, and also, as you are working in incubation center, as on the development of incubation center and startup ecosystem development, do you also think that the upcoming startups, upcoming business idea also should be correlated with the environment friendliness? This must be given utmost importance. Do you believe so?
Absolutely. I mean, our multinationals in Sweden has taken a great responsibility, and we see that in practice. It's not just because we've been pushing them to just don't talk, walk the talk, and like Greta Thunberg said, please walk the talk. We don't want to listen to politicians and world leaders just talking. It's just, you have to do. And I think that our multinationals in Sweden have really done that, and we see collaborations that are so cool. We see collaborations between competitors, strong competitors. Scania, Volvo collaborates when it comes to developing, new batteries and collaborates with Northvolt to create new batteries for their cars and their trucks. And you have Volvo and Scania in the same project, and they are competitors. So I think, and since I've seen this in practice in Sweden, I strongly believe in it because I've seen it for myself. And it's about that, taking the responsibility as a multinational, walking the talk, and showing that, we all, we have the same targets, we have the same goals, and targets and goals, I mean the sustainable development goals, but we can still have different ways. And this is really something that I've heard many of the multinationals in Sweden say. We have the same targets, we have the same goals, but we have different measures to achieve them, and that's, you have to respect that, and it's good. The diversity is great, but if we're gonna achieve the transformation in our society that we think it's absolutely necessary, then the multinationals have to be in the front run and drive that transformation, and we as a government agency can support as much as possible. I just want to mention one thing, because I know that we're very proud that Sweden is the second top innovation country in the world, but there's something very important to know. One of the reasons for us being that, and it is that Sweden spends 3.4% of our GDP on R&I. That's a lot of money. And just to mention another thing, out of that money that is spent on R&I, 2/3 come from our industry, 1/3 from our government. So the engagement of the multinationals that we have in Sweden and the industry is a very important, part of the platform that has created this fantastic innovation country, Sweden. So I just want to mention that, because I know it's not fair. A lot of countries are very impressed by Sweden, and it makes me super proud. But at the end of, at the same time, it's like, but we invest a lot in R&I. If you are in a country that hardly invests anything in R&I, it's, you're gonna have a tough time getting things done. And the government, the country needs to invest in innovation. Otherwise, it's gonna be super tough. And here again, it's not just the government in Sweden. 2/3 of the investments done in R&I, it comes from the industry. So the responsibility of the multinationals is super important. And also globally, it's, you cannot just, and I want to mention this, I'm not saying that the Swedish multinationals do this, but it's important to not just have it on your top priority in your home country, but also have it as a top priority and feel the responsibility, the whole value chain. So if you have a factory in Bangladesh, or if you have a subsidy in Brazil, you still have to feel the same responsibility as you do in Sweden. Just want to mention that, because
So Regina, with R&D, research and innovation, I think these are the things which are prerequisites for real development in a country. And if you look at developing countries, they are not that much, what can I say, interested to invest in R&D or research of development. So what do you think? Do you think this is more like lacking of governmental support, or do you think still now the kind of resources that developing countries have, they can go with that kind of research and development? And do you feel the responsibility to also speed the vibe of research and development in some of the countries as well? Because at the end of the day, if you just remain very good and very healthy, it will not ensure sustainability. It will not ensure the real peace. If you just can spread your innovation research all over the world, only after that you can bring real happiness.
Oh, so it's it's a tough question, but I think, a country needs to invest in research and innovation. You have to, and to achieve the global goals and the environment, the environment challenges that we have, the changes that are necessary require to implement innovations. So either you have the research yourself, or you have to buy it from someone else and implement it in your country. And just that implementation there, it costs, it's not cheap. But I want to say that, I mean, if many of you, there are students here listening that study entrepreneurship, entrepreneurship is like as a super important part of innovation. Like I was mentioning before, you can have an invention from a researcher that ends up as a publication on a shelf and just gets dusty, or you have an entrepreneur like you guys, doing something with that invention. So, and not everyone is, I mean, we have a lot of great researchers that don't have that skill, that they don't have that selling skill, and they don't have that entrepreneurial skill. That's why the students that that study entrepreneurship and the guys you part of this community are so important to make it happen. I just wanted to mention that because just so you understand how important you are.
Definitely. One interesting question which has been brought by someone, Mr. Amanullah Aman, he's saying, we are working on sustainable business development in Bangladesh. May we have a collaboration with your organization to work together for building sustainable world?
Well, we have, when it comes to internationalization, thank you so much for your question, Muhammad. And I just want to mention that Sweden is a very small country. We are huge when it comes to, we are an industrial giant because we have so many multinationals. But as a country, we are 10 million inhabitants. It's like a city in Bangladesh or in another country. So we are a very small country. And what we have to do, and also as a government agency, because we are only 200 people, what we have to do is we need to prioritize. And of course, we want to pinpoint and also learn from other innovation leaders. And so Sweden and the government has pinpointed 11 countries that are prioritized for international collaboration. It's Canada, the US, it's Brazil, it's France, Germany, Switzerland, Israel, it's China, Japan, and South Korea, and India. These are the countries that are prioritized in our bilateral innovation collaborations. But what I would like to mention, though, is, and when it comes to these 11 countries, we work on creating collaboration platforms. And we have country managers at Vinnova. And I'm, for example, responsible specifically for Brazil and Canada. Besides having my regular CSO job. So this is how we really have to be effective and work with the small resources we have. So with other countries, what we have done in some cases is that we have used the Eureka tool. Eureka is a partnership that's actually for the European countries, but the other countries can be associated partners to the Eureka network. And what you do there is that you create joint projects, but each country, so if we create a consortium, Bangladesh and Sweden, or if I'm a private company, for example, I can apply for funding from Vinnova, and you have to apply for funding from a government organization or a funding agency in your country. So it's not that Vinnova has funding for, it's the Swedish taxpayers' money. So the funding we have goes to Swedish actors, Swedish entities, and Swedish organizations primarily. What we always share, and it's very important to also learn from other countries. Learn how does your innovation ecosystem looks like, but also to, of course, if you visit Sweden, we host and give you the best program possible to learn more about how our innovation ecosystem, for example. So this is, that's, and for example, there, Muhammad, if you're interested in a specific area or companies or organizations within a specific area, please let me know, because I can put you in contact. I'm usually contacted by a lot of countries that want to get in, we want to find SMEs within focusing on bioeconomy or whatever, and then I help them because I know the innovation ecosystem quite well. So I can be the door in connecting you with the right organizations, but collaborating with Vinnova in projects, that's not possible because we are, a funding agency and we support the Swedish organizations in their collaboration projects. Sorry to give a boring answer, but it's
no. It was very insightful, and at the same time, I think we have many things to learn from you. So, Regina, in that particular moment, I would like to ask another interesting question. That is, there are many aspiring like graduates. There are many aspiring leaders, young leaders who would like to start their own startup. And if you look at Bangladesh is like economically is being very sound. It has maintained 6% GDP growth for more than 1 decade. And if you talk about top-notch industries in Bangladesh, like ready-made garments is a billion-dollar industry in Bangladesh. So apart from this, can you suggest some business ideas? At least our young generation can go for that. Like if I just share one story from my side, like there is a company that is Tide. Its name is PID, Tide. This is from Switzerland. What they actually do is very interesting. They manage some people from Thailand who likes to do fishing from many Thai sea beaches, and they ask them, rather than fishing, they can bring like plastics, bottles, and this sort of things. So in replace of fish, they will pay for the plastic bottles, and out of this they will like produce watches, papers, and t-shirts, and this sort of innovative things. So this can be a very good business model, if I may suggest. So just like this, what kind of new business more ideas you can suggest, so that our young generation, our youths, can at least explore to have better world?
Whoa, you're asking like $1 million question here, but I think that this project it sounds amazing. It's very, actually, maybe it could be interesting for them to learn or share experiences with the Sotenäs kommun that I was mentioning before. But I don't know how to answer this, to be honest. But I think that, because this might sound a little bit sad, but if there's no, someone needs to be able to buy whatever you're selling, right? And even if it is, we work and we support social innovation too, and social entrepreneurship, as we call it, in Sweden. But I don't know the possibilities of getting support for those ideas, because social entrepreneurship, usually you don't make money out of it, but if you just make it go around, that's you're super happy.
Regina, sorry to stop you. The thing that I would like to say is there must be some untapped things, like some unexplored division which still to explore. And Sweden has done so much innovation, and they have explored many sectors. There must be some sectors which are still untapped, like it can be in what can I say, garments industry, it can be in some of the industries. So which industries are untapped, which our young generation also can explore? This was the question from my side.
It's a tough question. It's a tough question, Moi, but I'm going to try to answer it.
You are a global leader. We definitely can deserve some kind of answer from you.
Yeah. No, but anything right now in Sweden, anything, energy efficiency, AI,
yes.
and actually, it's not just AI. It's actually, implementing AI in different. It can be in whatever, but how can we use data in great ways and in effective ways? And of course, energy efficiency it's very, very, something very, very popular in Sweden, and very, very important. Also, materials is also very important. How do we are we going to continue with this plastic bottles? Are we going to continue with these plastic boxes? And how can we use paper masks in different ways in creating different, and it's not just paper masks, it's different materials, energy efficient, anything that contributes to energy efficiency in some way or another, and AI, of course. And when I talk about AI, it's like applicable AI. So you don't need to be an AI expert, but how can you use huge amounts of data in creating a value out of that data? So this is just some. Now, it took me a while to understand your question.
No.
But now I think I got it. I think I got it.
It was a proper answer. I think globally, everybody is trying to come up with some ideas which will ensure energy efficiency, because in economics we say that resources are limited, so we need to do the best utilization of the existing resources. So this is the thing what we should do. Now I would like to go to another different part, like we all do mistakes, and in our young generation, sometimes if you want to take some bold decisions, like innovative decisions, you have to take big risks. So sometimes we say you want to do great things, try to do mistakes as early as possible. So now I'd like to know some negative things in a positive way, like what kind of mistakes you have done so far, and what kind of things you have learned out of your mistakes, so that we will not do this, and even if we do this, then at least we have some positive sides with us.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've done a lot of mistakes. I can tell you that, and of course some of them were maybe during the 10 first years working with different things, that and basically maybe because of immaturity, it takes a while to mature, and I don't know if I'm still mature, but I'm trying to be. But I think mistakes that I've done is, of course, in just basic things when it comes to communication. For example, don't ever estimate that everyone is on board, that everyone understands what you're saying. I think that the mistakes I've done, it's when you and I work quite fast. I have a lot of energy, and I move very fast. I have ideas, and I'm a doer, so I just do. And in that, and that's, I mean, these are great abilities, but it can also be a little bit dangerous when you don't get everyone on board and you run too fast, so you lose them. That's something that I have been, and I actually have to work on it still today sometimes. And of course, I've learned a lot. So I'm trying, I try to, I don't estimate that everyone understood what I said. I don't estimate that everyone is on board. I make sure that they are on board. And this is super important. You always make sure that they understand, make sure that they, are, and this is just in the job that I have today. My responsibility is for the whole international strategy for Vinnova. And this is quite difficult for some colleagues to understand. And I always have to, I have to go back and explain again and again and again, and just understand that just because it's easy for me, it's not easy for them. But I think this is something that I've always, struggled with, that I have a lot of ideas. I move super fast, and that's great. But if you don't get everyone on board and have the whole team with you, it's not great. So mistakes that I've done, and actually my last job before Vinnova, I always get positions when the employer wants me to change something, to develop something, because that's what I'm good at. I'm making the changes needed and seeing what changes need to be done. And my last job, I got the mission to change the culture of that public organization, or that government agency. Actually, they wanted to change the culture of the whole government agency, and they wanted to work in a different way. And I was totally on board with that. But it was one of the toughest things I ever done, because what I noticed, and I've learned after, starting to work on that, was that the HR manager and the boss, or the manager that assigned me for the mission had their own plan, and it was not anchored in the board. So always, like, again, make sure that everyone is on board of what you're going to do, if you're going to make changes or whatever you're going to do. For example, when I started at Vinnova, I was assigned again to show Vinnova, show our the staff, how can we work with internationalization? How can we create these platforms with the 11 countries, for example? But at that time, I've learned from my mistake in the other job, and I actually made sure that everyone in that board was on board of the mission that I was assigned to do. So these things, just make sure that people have actually, just because they have heard you say it, it doesn't mean that they have understood what you're saying. And this is about communication, just communication, having just communicating, listening, actively listening.
So if someone is watching this webinar, you must keep in your mind that when you are running a team, you must ensure that everyone is like on board. If someone doesn't understand you, you have to find out who is not with your tone, who is not synced with your planning, with your next step. So unless you have a team who are very clear about your mission and vision, you cannot get the best output out of them. So this is the key thing. So
the key thing is that, absolutely. And of course, if you have a team of 5 people, if you explain a vision and the goals that are supposed to be set, you can actually ask everyone in the room to explain in their own words what just have been said, so everyone is on board, and you actually you make sure that what they are saying is more or less what you have said. So you are really you know that you have reached out and they understand what it says. But it's easy when you are a group of 5. It's harder if you are like 200 people like Vinnova, or if it's an organization with 100,000 people. So how do you do that? And I think in that case, it's just about having patience and repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat, and having patience and repeat, and in that way but it's about communication, and I think the mistakes I've done is just running way too fast. So running way too fast.
So a leader is like a great communicator and a great instructor simultaneously. You have to do the like jobs of both persons. So this is the most vital thing. And again, Regina, in that note, I'd like to ask you another question. That is, what are your thoughts about Bangladesh? Like it may sound very interesting. What have you learned so far about Bangladesh? And if you look at Bangladesh, if you ask me, I would say, even though the economic condition is very good in terms of GDP growth and some other key metrics, but there are lots of things to done to create more employment opportunities. I think this is not the issue of Bangladesh. This is the issue all around the world. So first question, what are your thoughts about Bangladesh? And to enhance more employment, what can be done in developing countries, and what you are doing in your country as well?
Again, tough questions, Mohe. I'm going to try to answer them. But when talk about Bangladesh, to be honest, we don't talk about Bangladesh that much. I know that the first time we ran the Sweden Innovation Days, there was a Bangladesh incubator that was interested in signing up for the matchmaking event, and unfortunately, we couldn't sign them up because we had to prioritize. At that point, it was 10 countries that we collaborated with, and we didn't have the resources to do more. But of course, Bangladesh, what I know about Bangladesh is that we have, a lot of multinationals that have factories in Bangladesh. And when I think Bangladesh, I think about that. And I know it's not an honest and it's not a fair picture I have of Bangladesh. And to be honest, it's because I know too little. I know too little about Bangladesh, and I would like to know more. And I was asking you before, how many startups do you have? And I would really like to know more about your innovation ecosystem. That definitely. So I'm a little bit sad answer. I'm sorry, but
But don't worry, I am here, and my team, whole team is there to
yeah, you're
enlighten you
gonna make
about
sure I
Bangladesh.
learn everything
We are
about
going to make
Bangladesh.
it sure. Definitely, definitely. We
That's
will have
great.
another session again. It will be like private session where we'll discuss further about more collaboration, and we'll like speak more about Bangladesh. Don't worry about this. There is
It
nothing
sounds
to be
good.
worried
Sounds
about.
good. Sounds very good. Mhm. Sounds very good.
Okay.
Any more
So,
questions?
so
I don't see
my
any chat. Or, hmm?
yeah. Well, what I would say is I think people Bangladesh love like Sweden very very much. Everybody is wishing best of luck for this to the session. So I think they have liked your session so much that they are like watching this with utmost importance. So this is what I can feel, and I think this is just the beginning. We will have more sessions in future as well. So before going to the end of this session, I'd like to ask about School of Entrepreneurship Development, the initiative that we are coming up with. Like this institution or this community, we are actually working to uh, enhance the spirit of entrepreneurship, leadership, and innovation in our country. I think we are successful to some extent. We have activation in many private and public universities. So, what will be your suggestion to extend our activities further? Like you have also worked in to like enhance innovativeness in your country, and also you have worked in like youth levels. So what will be your suggestion to take our activities further in local level and global level as well? And do you think that this is something which we everybody must appreciate? Because I think uh, as I said earlier, that leaders always try to do something from the holistic approach, and we are doing this from the holistic approach. And out of this, we have create a tremendous network and ecosystem. I think this will be helpful, very much helpful for the youth of Bangladesh to take something positive with them.
Hmm. Well, I think I think it would be, and actually, I don't know if you have these courses, but I mean, just basic crash courses for your members, focusing on selling, focusing on communication and marketing. Because that's useful for anyone. I mean, everybody can have use of those, and then maybe just like tools. How do you use social media to market yourself as a person? And if I don't know if you use LinkedIn or whatever, but there are
Yes,
certain things.
we have activation on LinkedIn, and
Yeah,
we also like train up our members to be more active on LinkedIn, because this is one
yeah,
of the biggest networking places for the professionals. So we do this on regular
yeah.
basis.
Okay, good. Because I think that, I think it's important to offer your community members here just like the basic tools to be able to make changes, to make things happen, and for themselves, and also whatever, wherever they will work in the future. But I think communication and marketing skills are good for anyone to learn and understand. Selling skills, and then the basic, I don't know how, if you work with a business model canvas.
Yes. We
Just
have worked on
to
that.
everyone that has an idea, it's just, you can have a crash course on how can I just put down my idea on paper and think about all the relevant aspects. You have the 9 boxes in the business model canvas. I think this is knowledge that actually I think it should
This
be
is the
learned.
basics we must learn.
Basics. It should be learned in school, to be honest. I think my kids should learn these things in school. Whatever because even in Sweden, they don't learn about the business model canvas. They don't learn about entrepreneurship and stuff like that. They learn other good things, but there are things, even in the Swedish school, there are things lacking that I could be part of it. But I think this basic, just giving crash courses online, because it doesn't cost that much. I mean, it's great to meet up, but I mean, if you have online crash courses, here and there on this themes, I think that's pretty good. And I don't know how it is in Bangladesh, but in Sweden, there's a lot of people in our country that they have no idea how our innovation ecosystem works. They don't know who to turn to if they want to have business coaching, if they are going to apply for a grant, and if it is a grant, who do I turn to, who funds what. This is basic knowledge about a country's innovation ecosystem. And I think that just giving that to the people in that country could be, very, very useful tools, these basic things. So it's not about, learning about the sustainable development goals and how you're going to save the world, because if you cannot reach out with who you are to get a proper job, or what you want to do if you have a job, all those things is about communication. Yeah. So sorry to sound boring, but I think those things are
it's absolutely not boring. This is very insightful and very meaningful for us, and especially for the youth, because they will lead our country in future, and who knows, they will lead in global level as well. So
hopefully,
definitely, I think. So I would like to say it's an absolutely great honor for me to host this webinar, and I hope that the key things that our youths are taking away from this webinar, like no matter what you do, it has to be done honestly. It has to be done from the holistic approach. And secondly, the business you do, any idea that pops up, you have to ensure eco-friendliness. So until or unless you can come up with these issues, you cannot assure a very good environment, a very good community, or a very good world. Because at the end of the day, this place, this earth, this is for living. It's not for destroying. So we must keep good eye on decreasing carbon emissions and ensuring sustainability. And I hope this session will be absolutely a great learning experience for all the youths of our country. And since this is recorded, I think as the days go by, more people will be able to know about Vinova, about Regina Summer, a wonderful lady, and all the good things that she has done so far for her country and for the many countries all over the world. So again, Regina, thank you very much for coming to our session. And this is not the end. I think there will be more sessions with you. And after this session, we'll maintain a strong collaboration with you and your team. And I will send you mail about further communication in the future. And thank you very much for enlightening us what you do for your country, and for bringing innovations and positive sides in the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much, Mohi, and thank you guys for listening. Really, it's been an honor. Thank you so much.
So I wish you best of luck in this pandemic period. I hope you will be in very good health, and take care. Bye bye, and hope to talk with you again in future. Thank you.
Yes.
Have a very good day.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.